Hey guys, I am Dr. Kim Sage. Welcome back to my YouTube channel and to this series on healing your attachment, wounds, and disturbances. We are really into the series right now, focusing on how to heal those deeper wounds that first occurred in relationship to the environment you were born into. Please keep in mind though that, as I discussed in a few videos ago, that your nervous system and your attachment system are deeply wired together. And so to work on healing your attachment wounds and disturbances, this is the first step, understanding, looking at where the research says we need to go to work on healing, and to also understand that that corresponds and relates to working on your body responses and soothing your body as well. At the end of this next few videos, I have a protocol I'm going to be posting that I hope you will be able to apply regardless of your attachment style, and I hope that these videos are helpful. And lastly, a little further down the road, I would like to keep focusing on attachment as it plays out in our adult relationships with our partners and kids and things like that. So if you are just new here, I am a licensed clinical psychologist, and I would love for you to subscribe and click the bell, and that way you'll get notified when I post new videos. Okay, let's get into, I think it's 15 steps I have written out today. I'm going to try to make them relatively quick so these videos aren't too long, but let's talk about sort of what it looks like when you have a more anxious or preoccupied attachment style. Now, really quickly, as a quick reminder, I would say that the parenting or caregiving style that goes with this one is often called an outside-in orientation. And what that really means is that the child, because of the parents' inconsistencies, inability to be, have a good timed response in terms of attunement, because of the parents' anxiety, the child learns to be hypervigilant and to be always focusing first on the caregiver to see what the caregiver needs. And so that creates an outside in, where it's like we're always looking for other people on the outside to then determine what we are supposed to feel on the inside. And so that is the heart of what this style does. And I would say that compulsive caretaking, people pleasing, rotating around others, and at the core having a deep fear about relationship dynamics and health, and sort of always being overly focused on, are they going to leave me? Are they safe? Is this a good attachment? Can I trust them? That's always being focused on them, on their actions, on how they respond to you. And so it's really hard to feel a sense of security when you're always sort of giving all of that internal security to someone else, because people get busy. They have their own issues, right? We can't always rely on them. So this work is about learning how to internalize and soothe your own attachment so you can show up in calmer, more secure ways, first with yourself and obviously with partners. Okay, so the first issue is that because you were this sort of outside-in orientation type behavior in your childhood, where you tend to focus on others' state of mind at the expense of your own, meaning you sacrifice your own state of mind. You don't even really look at it first. You have learned to be more focused, as I said, on others' needs more than your own. And so the first step is learning how to begin to identify your own needs. Well, what do I want in this situation? What would feel right for me? How do I feel and in my body about this decision? Does this feel like a good, regulated decision, or am I just sort of like a ping pong ball reacting? So the first step is even just learning how to identify your own feelings and your own emotions. The second step is addressing your parent if you have this relationship still going on as an adult or young adult. If you are still rotating around that parent, if you have an enmeshed relationship, if you don't have a good separate sense of self in terms of this parent, even if it's, you're in a marriage, but you still talk to your parent every single day, and their mood and their needs or their marital issues are always coming back to you and you're trying to take care of them, I would say look at that relationship and start to rethink, using the rest of these concepts, how you can work on setting healthier boundaries and less focus on rotating around and managing that parent, probably like you just did in childhood, right? You're just still stuck in that. And so I know that's a hard thing to do, but very important. The next one is to work on addressing this same dynamic, this role, in other relationships. Where do you tend to rotate around everyone else and look to how they're feeling? Now, according to adult attachment theory, you're going to most do this, of course, in your adult, romantic, intimate partnerships. But I would encourage you to look at friendships, right? Do you tend to freak out if you text them and they don't text you back within a certain amount of time? Do you overread the amount of emojis and assign meaning? I think we all do this to a certain extent. But when you have a more anxious style, you're just always over-reading everything. And that can really apply in any relationship, even your work relationship. Number 4 is watch out if you are inadvertently doing the same thing to your kids, because you learn to be this sort of rotating around a parent. Are you expecting your kids to do that? Are you expecting your kids to help manage your emotions and your feelings and solve your adult issues? Where do you need to look at how that anxiety might be showing up? And or is it showing up in a lot of fear or a lot of multitasking so much that you have a hard time being fully present, even for 5 minutes, face to face, eye to eye? We often tend to parent, at least in some regard, the way we were parented. Even if we decide we don't want to parent that way, it's oftentimes the first initial response. So take a look at the patterns in your own relationship with your kids. And if you don't have kids, but you want to someday, you might want to start thinking about these patterns and how important it is to really work on changing this dynamic. Number 5 is your tendency to overread others, their nonverbals, their tone of voice, and to interpret everything as a threat or an assessment of the relationship. So you're often basically doing what you did with your parent. You're sort of reading mommy or daddy or the caregiver at all times. What's their face say? What do they need? And then if they're okay, I'm okay. And so you might want to start looking at where you do this, identifying how it's not serving you. Look at how you often overanalyze, and frankly, oftentimes you might be wrong in their interpretation, right? Because just because it looked a certain way in your childhood doesn't mean it looks the same way in your partner. But you've got the volume on full blast on analyzing and reading everybody, and that is not going to serve you. So you want to start working on how to check in with yourself and say, you know what? I know you think that's true. Why don't you clarify it with that person? Why don't you give it a little bit of time and pause before you freak out and text a response or demand a response? And so that's an important skill. I would say the next thing is, as a result of this style, you might struggle with managing your emotions. And so you want to work on your own emotional regulation skills, working on things like mindfulness and breathing and hitting the pause button, using the container exercise, learning how to sort of navigate and manage and even compartmentalize sometimes, because actually in some ways it's not a bad thing sometimes to say, you know what, I'm going to take some breaths. I know I'm freaking out. I'm going to try to calm down. I'm going to put this away for now because I have to be with my kids, or I have to be at work or deal with some issue, and I can come back to it later. So working on emotion regulation skills. I know each of these could be a whole video, and maybe at some point I'll do that, but it's important to work on how to manage emotions. And remember, like I said, you often tend to misinterpret too, and so you want to get more centered around those skills. The next one kind of relates to that. It's learning to deal with really strong, sudden surges of emotion, which can often be panic, anger, extreme anxiety, and learning how to tolerate the uncomfortable emotions or feelings or thoughts that drive that. So it's like you're going along in your day, and then all of a sudden, you realize that the partner hasn't texted you back and it's been several hours, and they always do, but today they didn't. And so you just immediately go into, oh my God, they're in a car accident. Oh my God, they're going to leave me. They're cheating on me, whatever it is. And you can't tolerate the reality that maybe they're in, maybe they're a doctor, maybe their surgery went long, maybe they're in a business meeting and their cell phone died. It's like you have to work on ways to calm and soothe, whether it's anger or, like I said, panic, with kind of circling back to mindfulness and breathing. But the core is learning how to tolerate uncomfortable negative feelings, first of all, in your body, in your nervous system, right? Because your nervous system hit that sympathetic, most likely for you, if you're anxious, and it feels really almost impossible to manage. So I would, encourage you to do like counting backwards, getting some ice as we do in like panic. There's a lot of videos around about dealing with panic, and I'll probably get to those soon too, but work on navigating and how to calm and soothe the thoughts and emotions and the experiences that are driving that response in your body. The next one is to identify and set the strong exploratory goals you want. And what does that mean? This means that as kids with this style, because we were clingier and more fearful, we often were inhibited in our exploratory behavior. We're less likely to go climb Mount Kilimanjaro, right? Because we might have already manifested 10 different ways we would die. I mean, that's obviously a risky thing to do, but people do things, right? And so it's like, try to identify places outside your comfort zone, things you might have always wanted to do, but your anxiousness has gotten in the way. And maybe set little goals, like little attainable goals, and then work your way up to larger goals. But look at, where have you held yourself back in terms of exploring literally the world around you, or, hobbies or jobs or relationships or whatever. The next one is to work on developing mutuality and communication in relationships. And what does that mean? That means that you're so used to being the main person who reads everything that you oftentimes need help in learning how to deal with the person in front of you, to understand it's a reciprocity that occurs in a relationship. And what fuels that is communication. And so working on, when you're panicked, before you just jump to an assumption or freak out, learn how to reach out and say, hey, I'm feeling a little anxious right now, but I'm having this thought. Would you mind if I shared it with you? Or what do you think about that? Working on your communication skills with everyone before you kind of jump to conclusions, and really focusing on the fact that it takes two or more to have a reciprocal dynamic. It's not just you trying to rotate around and take care of everybody else. The next one is to honor, and this kind of goes back to what I said in the avoidant video, but to honor that parts of this style are really beautiful. They're about being loving and being a good caretaker and being mindful of other people, right? Your challenge is you're probably overly sensitive to the world and to others, but there is a beauty in that. And so, letting yourself also honor that this helped you survive your childhood. This is how your nervous system had to deal with and respond to the system you were born into. And there are some good parts. It's just we don't want to live in this place all of the time. And so I would say, write down some qualities about your caregiving or how you respond to people. I mean, I would say even many therapists might have this background too, because we learn to read people. And it can be a real skill in therapy to be able to say, to watch someone across the room who that little eye muscle just twitched, and and we would say something like, let's just stop for a second. What just happened there? If you're not trained to read other people, you might not be so good at that. Now, you don't need to be a therapist, obviously, to find this valuable. But just, focus on the self-love there are some beautiful parts of it. You just don't want to be there all the time. And then number 13 is to work on the boundaries, because you tend to overdo and overtake others in terms of over caretake. Work on what is healthy and appropriate, what you will do and what you will not do. And the key to that one is looking at where you feel resentment, consistent resentment. That is often a key to where we feel like we have been doing more, and we need to start working on setting boundaries. And then I would say the last three are looking at your protest behaviors. Protest behaviors are really any attempts to reconnect to a partner when we feel disconnected, and they're very common in anxious attachment. And they look like excessive attempts in like calling or texting, emailing, or withdrawing, game playing, keeping score, acting, kind of cranky or hostile, threatening to leave, being manipulative, trying to get them to respond to you, to reinforce and calm and soothe that sympathetic, anxious vibe you've got going on. But the heart of it is you're doing things to test, to push back, to reassure yourself. And so I would really encourage you to work on that. I will definitely make a video about protest behaviors if I haven't already. It's been a while, and how this can play out with our style and how to help our bodies heal too. And then the last two are really, like I said, looking at where you need to, where you've sacrificed yourself, where all of this caretaking has really left you high and dry. Maybe it's your health. Maybe it is in boundary setting. Maybe it is in sacrifices you've made at work that are just not serving your relationship or your life in some way. And so looking at where you need to put the light back on yourself more, and then creating a plan in order to do that. And lastly, I'll be posting in the next few days this internalized parent protocol to help work on healing parts of your attachment wounds and disturbances. So I hope this video was helpful. I know it was a lot of information, and yeah, I do understand that, but I was really wanting to get it posted today. So thank you so much for watching. Please stay safe and well. And don't forget to subscribe and or also follow me on TikTok, where I post, as I said, pretty much once a day, if not 2 or 3 times a day, all around these topics on my channel. So take good care, guys, and I will see you tomorrow.